Hi, we're here back with Behind the Baton with great American composer Taaffe Zwilich and me, and this is our 9th broadcast. First time that we've had a composer. Actually, our first guest was my son Julian, with my son he has little choice. I said, Julian, you're going to come? And with Ellen I asked, and she was very gracious and said she'd be happy to come because we are friends for many years. I won't. Actually, do you talk about your age now that you have a...
Oh, my age is, very, very well known.
And because Ellen will be 80 next year.
Next year, yeah.
Very exciting, very exciting. But we knew each other when we were practically I was a teenager. You were.
Yeah, I was a little older.
Because well, why don't you tell our audience how we know each other?
Well, Jerry and I met when we were both in the American Symphony under Leopold Stokowski. I was a violinist, and Jerry was this already phenomenal trumpet player. And we were both in this orchestra, which was, for me, it was really probably my best compositional background.
It was a
years
phenomenal
in that
experience.
orchestra.
How did you like Stokowski?
How long do we have?
Give us the short version.
Well, he was a mix of being somebody who was just sort of like mean and somebody who could make you really want to play. And his gestures were very, very welcoming. His attitudes were not. I mean, it was a very interesting mix. And he also, there were things that he had quite some problems being able to do. And when he'd just done one of those and you think, oh my God, what's going on, then he'd do something that you never forget. Yeah. And he was sort of...
I think that's the same with the performances. I mean, some of the performances were absolutely sensational. They were remarkable. And others, what is he doing?
Yeah, exactly.
Remember I think you were there for the Tchaikovsky Fourth that we did.
Yes,
we recorded
yes.
that. Yeah. I remember I had a cue to play the horn part after the very first few bars. And I said, he can't mean that I should play this. I left it out. So he slams his hand. Trumpet! Play! I know it's there in your part. It sure was stuck on the side. I thought, he can't really mean that I'm supposed to play the horn part. But I did. And we recorded it that way. Anyway, it was interesting. But then we got to know each other at Gerard, of course. Ellen wrote a trumpet quartet she brought to me. And because in her, not only was she a great composer, but she was an excellent violinist and a trumpet player. I mean, how many composers were trumpet players?
I don't know. Something that surprised me in your book is that Nadia Salerno-Sonnenberg played the trumpet. I didn't know that. Right. I wrote a piece for her and everything, and I didn't know that. But no, I loved the trumpet. I played the Haydn Concerto and the UNESCO Legend when I was in high school. And I played into college, and then I was so much more interested in the violin, I kind of stopped.
Well, that was smart.
Well,
then
I
you
don't
became
know.
interested in something yet bigger, composition, which is so I'm going to ask you some questions that I'm not going to say, how did you start composing? I went to the piano. No. Do you have a process, even now? I mean, do you sit at the piano and start playing and then something strikes you? Do you start with a melody? Do you start with this concept of structure? Do you start with a harmonic sequence? How do you get started?
I don't think I know the answer to that question because there are times when a piece just sort of starts. And there are other times when I struggle with this and struggle with that, and then all of a sudden it comes together. And that to me is the moment. And I identify with everybody from the people that just do everything spontaneously to things like the Beethoven sketches for Opus 18, number 1, where it sounds, it sounds like he just fell out of bed and wrote it. And you see all these, leading up to that. None of A, B, C, and D, all these trials, they don't really lead to the end. But in the course of doing these little awkward sketches, he came up with that. So
We were talking earlier about my main composition teacher was Paul Creston, and Ellen told me that she taught him to water ski. Yeah. Because Ellen's from Florida, and of course you enjoyed the
Oh, I loved to water ski, yeah.
And I don't know if any of you, I mean, even to see a picture of Paul Cresson, you would know that he is not the water skiing type.
He got up. I was very proud of my student.
That's because he had a very good teacher. But Paul used to tell me that every morning he'd get up. There were a few things about him that were, in some ways, unusual. He got up every day, and he started composing, no matter what.
Yeah.
And he's a good pianist. So he played Bach, always played Bach. He said that was it, inspired me. Started playing Bach, and then he would go on. Do you have a composer that you look to, a Stravinsky or someone that you listen to and get inspired by?
No, my approach basically is to have a huge number of possibilities, huge number of things I'm thinking about, and at some point they coalesce, and that's the point. But I also don't write at the piano, partly because I'm not a good pianist, but also because as a string player, you know, the piano just doesn't sound in tune, and it's very interesting. It's a wonderful instrument. I mean, the system of tuning, the tempered tuning, was a miraculous thing for music. Really wonderful thing for music, but it is not. I don't know. It's not my instrument. And I also, when I'm writing for orchestra, let's say, I do all my sketches on full score. I even did this when you had to do it by hand.
You don't write by hand anymore?
Oh God, no! I've got a computer program I like.
Which one do you like?
I like Sibelius. When I'm looking at this empty sort of score, I feel that players are sitting there, and it makes it more alive for me, and I do like that. And part of it is through my orchestral experience that I think of instruments as being like animals. You know, they're like creatures, and they have weight, and they have size, and they have different ways of moving, and it's just a great pleasure to me. I never quite get over it, of getting into the nature of instruments and trying to let them come forth, you know.
Now, do you always work with a commission? Commission means that someone calls you and says, would you write a string quartet and pay you a certain amount of money? Do you always write to commission? Mm-hmm. And there used to be, in the old days, this is when I say the old days, this is 50, 60 years ago, Stravinsky used to write for $1,000 a minute. You want a 5-minute piece, it's $5,000. Is it? I'm not talking about you. I don't know what your number is, but do composers? How do you determine how much money a commission should be? Or does your publisher do that, or?
Kind of, yeah. The publisher and the manager can have a say in that. But I think of what I do. Although I spend most of my working time, I'm in a room all alone. I think of what I do as very communal. The people I write for, I feel, I mean, some of them, you know, at this point feel like family. And so I'm thinking that I'm in a configuration where even though I'm in this room all by myself, I'm connected to other people. And my first audience is me, my second audience is my performers, and then there's a third audience. And the thing about the commission idea is that somebody else is invested in it. And they want to see it happen. And that's really a very nice part of the picture.
Of course, for me, in some ways, the most interesting aspect of watching a composer, being a composer, is the relationship you have to the audience. When I was very young, we used to always say, "Oh, the music won't be understood. No one understands this, and no one understands that. Wait 100." So now, 100 years later, I listened to the pieces that I didn't think much of that were written in 1918, and I listen to them now, and I still don't think much of them, and neither does the audience. I mean, I believe that that's a fallacy. I think that most pieces, fine pieces, are appreciated immediately. People say, "What about the Rite of Spring? This is a great work," and it was boo right away. Well, let me think of this. So the curtain comes up,
Yeah.
and the bassoon player plays folk melody,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And they start booing. Now, how is that possible? They haven't even heard it yet.
Yeah.
And it's true, they started booing right away. So
Was
I mean,
the ballet
obviously,
on stage at that point?
it was set up. In those days, until recently, you could buy people to boo or to cheer. At the opera, it was very traditional.
Well, that's right, clinic.
Have a clinic, and you say, we pay everybody, $5. You go there and boo this aria.
Yeah.
And so the word was out
Yeah.
about how this was going to be, and it was very political.
Yeah.
People don't ever think about how can you start booing before. It reminds me once of doing a piece of John Cage when I was in the New York Philharmonic, and I was sitting up front. There was a thing for quintets, and I was. Anyway, it's a long story. So. We started doing this piece, which was horrible, and everybody started walking out. I thought to myself, maybe there'll be some dancers that come on naked or something later on. They're going to miss it all. Anyway, you have a theory. I interrupted you.
Well, I thought that most of the controversy, the actual controversy of the Rite of Spring, had to do with the suggestiveness of the ballet. Mm-hmm. And I think it's very interesting. Debussy's Jeu was written about the same time. And in some ways, the Debussy is much more 21st century.
Much more difficult.
Yeah, than the Stravinsky. I mean, I love both pieces, but I think there's all kinds of silly, ideas about the audience. And I think the one thing I always say, that you can have 2,000 people sitting there. And some people are there because they've been brought by their partner or their parents or whatever. Some people are there because they want to be seen there. There's one person in that audience whose life is going to change that day because of that performance. Mm. And I said, that is who we write for. That's who we perform for. It's that kind of thing.
I've read quotes of yours where you have said, I can find it.
Oh my gosh.
that you actually write for an audience. You want the audience to be able to appreciate your music. Not that you're writing simplistic music, but rather music that can connect.
Well, I love the idea that music can connect. It has to connect with me first, and then the performers, and then the audience. And I have been, there was a time when I was accused of writing accessible music.
Accused?
Yeah.
Now that's an interesting word.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I mean, what is the opposite? Inaccessible, forbidding, don't listen to this, or, So of course I write accessible.
Well, what you're thinking, of course, right now, historically, there are so many styles.
Yeah, I like that.
There are probably more styles now, would you say, than almost ever?
Probably, although there are certain, it's probably not quite as diverse as it seems, but it's in the neighborhood. Yeah.
And you like that?
Oh yeah.
But what about the value? What about the idea that someone's going to go to a concert and hear a piece that, let's say, you and I would both agree is not very good, it's not very well written, without inspiration, no melodic harmonic interest, and someone says, oh, this is a great masterpiece, and the audience says, gee, this is a great masterpiece, I must not like modern music.
Yeah.
I've seen that happen.
I know. Yeah.
It shouldn't.
That's a shame.
Doesn't someone have to be the judge because of knowledge of what is good and bad? Is that possible, or are we so afraid to make statements about things
Well,
like that?
you talk about the commission situation. One of the things that happens in that is that, particularly I've written a lot of concertos. I think it's just a horrible situation to put somebody in to play a brand new piece once. So if they have a chance to play it more times, that's really kind of wonderful. And in different venues, different places. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a believer in having arbiters. I'm a believer in getting people to open their ears. Mm-hmm. It's kind of sad to me when people say to me about a new piece, what should I listen for? Mm. I said, well, you listen for the next thing, No. Go from the start.
Let me ask you another question, something that's interesting to me too. All of this is interesting to me, by the way, but you're a performer. You played the trumpet obviously very well. You played the violin exceptionally well. You studied with Galamian. You went to Juilliard. I mean, that's, and certainly before the 20th century, every composer, without exception, was a performer.
Yeah.
Conductor, a pianist, violinist, whatever,
Everything.
everyone, without exception. Into the 20th century, first half of the 20th century, still pretty much. You can listen to Copland or Stravinsky conducting, or Ravel playing the piano, or whatever. By the middle of the 20th century, I'll pick an arbitrary time, composers, many stopped being performers. Elliott Carter was a teacher of yours, and an old friend of mine, never performed that I'm aware of.
No, I know. He did.
I mean, what about that? I mean, do you feel that because you were a performer, not only did you learn within the orchestra, you mentioned that already with Stokowski, but then you also know what it feels like to go on the stage and play a piece.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I've done pieces, especially when I was younger, I thought to myself, I wish the composer would come up here and play this piece so they know how horrible it feels to do this piece.
I remember, I think it might have been the first time I saw you conduct. You did a piece of Elliott's. They brought you in because the person who'd been scheduled to conduct it couldn't. Because you had to conduct one tempo in one hand and another one in the other hand. And by God, you did it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you wouldn't have told the story.
Oh, good Lord! Oh, goodness. Yeah.
So, do you think it's a value? Do you think that's part of the value of why your music is so wonderful because you had the experience as a performer?
I think everybody ought to do what means most to them, and as a part of my performing background, that means a tremendous amount to me. I mean, I say my biggest joy as a composer, the biggest prize I could ever win, is when I hear a performance and I feel like it's in the performer's bones. I happen to have written it, but it's theirs.
Do you feel like, okay, you write a piece and the performer's playing, now it's theirs? Or do you feel you want to micromanage them?
Oh, no. I love to deal with people that you don't have to micromanage. And there's a couple of other things. I have taken in quite a number of recent years before I have a metronome mark, I use the term circa. So for me, a metronome mark is not about a click track, it's about pulse. And there are things that sound better faster in certain circles, in certain auditoriums, and things that sound better slower. And then there's this human element of the pulse where your pulse goes up when you get excited and it goes down when you're relaxed. And I like this aspect of performance. And I also feel, I love it when even the same person does my piece a little differently from time to time. I love that. It makes it live.
Yeah.
You know.
But do you ever, now, because a lot of conductors and performers watch our Facebook live things, what about suggestions from the performers? Do you ever take them? Do you ever request, ask for them? Are you open-minded about it?
Oh, I'm not only open-minded, I'm, probably annoying to some of them because, I mean, you mentioned the bassoon solo at the beginning of The Rite of Spring, and I wrote a bassoon concerto for Nancy Garris in Pittsburgh, and I just, I got so much out of Nancy, and I want to, when it's an instrument that, like the bassoon, where I not only don't know how to play it, I don't know why you would play it. You got to make the reed. I mean, this is a nightmare in itself. It's made of wood and cork and all of these things. And, just playing the fiddle, it's like Goldilocks. It doesn't like it too hot, too cold, too damp, too dry. And, I mean, the bassoon just comes to you with all kinds of issues, I would say. So
you didn't rent a bassoon
I
and
didn't.
try and figure.
I certainly didn't.
It reminds
do
me
that.
of our old friend Jacob Druckmann, who of course he did very well. He wrote a piece I think called Valentine, the double bass.
Oh yeah, the
piece.
double bass piece.
And I was talking to him. I said, "How did this come about?" He said, "Well, he was in Paris for the summer, and it was very hot, but he was wanted to write this piece. So he'd get up. He rented a bass."
Yeah.
And this apartment was the bass and me. And he said, and I just struggled playing with this to try to figure out what I could write.
Oh my God!
So, but you didn't get a bassoon for that.
No, I didn't. And as a matter of fact, when I wrote my oboe concerto for John Mack, I said, John, should I get an oboe and mess around with it? No. But the people I've written for, like Nancy, gave me so much material. And I usually say to a performer, tell me all the literature you love and tell me the literature you hate. And my lips are sealed. I'd never tell anybody.
But you study those pieces.
Oh, yeah. And studied some of the etudes they do and, you know, listen to this and listen to that. And she would, and a number of the people I've written for, like Charlie Vernon and John, everybody, they would record stuff and send it to me. And
nice.
So I had their sound in my ear. And when I was working on the bassoon concerto, I was really, really trying to learn more and more about the instrument. And one day I woke up and I said, if I open my mouth, a bassoon sound is going to come out. And I was ready to go. And I started the piece like that.
So I'm going to go back in history a little bit, because you won the Pulitzer Prize in 1983.
Yeah.
Did that change your life?
Well, it didn't hurt. I wouldn't say it changed my life because I was old enough to know that it didn't mean anything. I mean, in terms of my value.
It gave somebody.
Somebody
gave you a stamp of approval.
Oh, it was very good for me, for my career. It's like I say, I didn't. I've been
no composer should feel badly if they don't get it, but if you get it,
yeah.
It's like what I say about good reviews.
Yeah.
Just be happy they weren't bad.
That's right.
And don't believe them, because if you believe the good ones, you're going to have to believe the
bad
bad ones.
Yeah, you're right. And it's very interesting because like I say, for me, the biggest prize is a wonderful performance. And it was really very nice to receive the Pulitzer Prize. And it helped.
Would you talk a little bit about I know this is ridiculous, but if someone said to you, what would you consider to be your style? Now, you have to, before you answer, you're going to say, oh, I write gorgeous music, I write sensitive music, I write music that's going to resonate with the audience and with the performer. Okay, that's all true. I can say that. But I mean, you do write melodies, you do write harmonies, you do write in a thoughtful way. Some people would call it conservative, not me, but some people would. What would you say? How would you describe your style?
I don't think I have one.
But you have a recognizable voice.
Well, I have a voice, but I don't think I have a style. And I've even given some thought to this whole thing, the difference between fashion and style and custom. And a lot of the stuff that was being talked about, well, I was in the American Symphony and thinking about the music we were playing. People are debating, whether you can do this or you can do that, or this is okay or that's all right, and uptown versus downtown. John Cage, I thought, had the best answer to all of that. He was on a panel once, and they were asking him about this division between uptown New York and downtown New York. And he said, I will only be discussed by my zip code. None of that stuff means anything to me. And sometimes, I just wrote a piece for, we just recorded it this week, for bass voice, piano, and djembe, the African drum, based on a poem called Ubuntu, which is it's a fascinating poem. And I had this delightful experience of saying, I really want to set this poem, and I have no idea how I'm going to do it. See, that to me is fun. I mean, it's nice to be in this. I always say, I think I said this at the club that night. I always feel like I've got one foot on really solid ground, and the other foot is dangling over a precipice, and I don't know how far down or what. So I feel grounded, and I also feel like, oh my God, where's it going to go? I like that.
I'm going to ask you. We did a program together at the Century Association, and it was very interesting. And I'm going to ask you the same question I asked you there, because I think it's important. Because you're the first woman to have won the Pulitzer Prize. You're among the most cherished composers alive. And you're a woman composer. You've always been a woman, as far as I know.
I was a girl like birth.
But
Came out.
but nowadays that becomes an important issue. I was reading something in one of the newspapers today, and they were talking about commissions, and they mentioned there were 10 composers, 5 of whom were women, which I'm thrilled about. It could have been 10 women, But do you identify yourself as a woman composer? In the composition?
No, I'm happy to be a woman. I like being a woman, but I had a very unusual background because I went to a high school that had a big music program. It was a public high school. We had a music building, in Coral Gables, Florida. We had a very, very good band. We had a mediocre second band. We had 2 choruses. We had an orchestra that could saw its way through a Mozart symphony. I got to be concert master of the orchestra. They call me concert mistress. We had behind the screen auditions. And my senior year, the first trombone was a girl, first clarinet was a girl, and I was first trumpet. And none of us thought that there was anything unusual about that. And this was in the 1950s. This is before they had behind-the-screen auditions for symphonies. And then, of course, the other thing is that when I first came to New York, Stokey had started the American Symphony, and there were a lot of women in the American Symphony. There were blacks in the American Symphony. There were Asians, which was unusual at that time. Yeah. And I remember seeing a video not too long ago from, say, 1962 or something, Stokey conducting the Chicago Symphony. Well, he looked exactly the way he did when we were there, and the whole thing was the same. But when the camera panned the orchestra, it was 99.9% white European male. And we walked into something where the door was open. And
in fact, I remember him once saying, he was being interviewed, and so said, "Oh, you have so many women." He's, "Yes, I could go so far as to say I prefer them." I'm going to ask you a few questions that we have a nice. Oh, Matthew, directly, I know. Do you ever change your music based on your soloist's suggestions?
Of course, yeah.
Do classical composers ever use orchestrators?
No.
But
So people,
no,
I guess people do.
But film composers do, and Broadway composers do.
Well,
not always.
See, the word orchestrate, it implies that there's a first thing you do. Like you make a piano thing and then you orchestrate. Mm-hmm. I write for the orchestra. I don't write for the piano and then give things to the orchestra.
I think the question is, do any classical?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure some people do. But I wouldn't want to.
What is your view of some sorely underrated additions to the classical repertoire? Let me ask you this, apropos of this. Yeah. I'm a big proponent of our history of American music, and whether it be John Knowles Paine or Charles Ives or Roger Sessions or whomever, and yet we as a country in general, and people heard me say this before, don't really appreciate, don't play the music of Bill Schumann or Paul Creston or Peter Menin or much, in fact almost at all. So are those? Do you feel that those composers are underrated or underrepresented?
Yes, I think they're underrepresented, and I think if you look at things historically, things are always in a state of flux and change, and things that used to be like so hot are no longer, but they might come back. Right. I mean, it's a fluid situation. And one of the things I really, really appreciated about Stokowski is that he really wanted something new on every program, unless it was a Beethoven 9. And not that he necessarily learned it well, but he was a believer in doing something that was new, or at least not terribly old, and doing American music. I mean, he was a champion of Ives, and
You were there, and we were both there for the August 4th that he did.
I was there for the recording of it, but the very first performance, it was the year before I got in the orchestra.
Do you have any techniques or advice to overcome writer's block? I'd never heard of such a thing.
I have a very funny story to tell. I don't know if we have enough time.
Sure.
But you also worked with Vincent Persichetti.
Sure.
I never worked with Vincent Persichetti, but I was writing a piece, and I already had my doctorate and all of that, and I came up against a brick wall. And I have been actually writing, that's been the focus of my life since 1977. And so I've gotten to know myself pretty well. And there are times when you come up against this brick wall and you know you got to just sit there and find your way through it. And other times, you know, you got to get up and run around the block or go do something else, you know. Anyway, I was writing this piece and I kept coming up against this brick wall. And I thought, oh, I can't handle this. So I thought, well, who do I know that would, you know, just has the most encyclopedic knowledge? And I thought, well, Vincent Persichetti. So I called Persichetti, and I told him my problem. And I said, can I come see you? And so we both were on the phone, get our date books out, and we make a date about 10 days away. And so I'm happy that I've done something about this. And then I started thinking, well, you know, I can't just go in there and say, help me, you know. He's going to want to know this, that, or the other thing. I started thinking about the questions he was going to ask me. And the next thing that happened, the piece took off.
Wow.
And the next thing that happened is he called me. Or no, I called him. And he said, I know why you're calling. I said, you do? He said, yes. You started thinking about the things I was going to ask you, and you solved your own problem.
Wow.
And that was amazing.
I remember he told me once that when he has a problem, he gets in his car and drives around.
Yeah.
And then he comes home and he gets...
Yeah. I go swimming.
What is your advice to an unknown composer trying to get a larger work, such as an opera, performed? Oh boy.
Keep trying. Keep trying. Don't quit. Don't quit.
Do you find your gender ever to be a barrier in the classical music community in order to be a successful composer?
I suppose there have been times, you know, but for every detraction, I've had support. So, I mean...
So you have had an experience where you felt that because you were a woman, it was harder for you to get a performance or a commission or something like that?
No, I haven't had that.
No.
But I had, like, when I was in college, my freshman year, I was a music education major because that's all I knew. And I was writing since I was 10, and I'd even written stuff for my high school band and played stuff, you know. And I realized I really wanted to be in composition, and I worked it out with the head of the department. He accepted me. He gave me some exercises and stuff, and he accepted me. And one of my theory teachers sat me down and said, you know, you're a girl, you know, and you like boys and they like you. You're going to get married. You need something to fall back on. That's a bad idea. You should stay in music ed. And another one of my theory teachers, and a wonderful teacher actually, the next day told me to come see him. And I go in thinking, okay. And he said, I hear you're going to change your major. And I said, yeah. And he said, oh, that's great. Don't take this course, it's too easy. You know, he was just sort of on my team.
Wow.
You know, go for it, kid, you know.
Nice.
And so I went with him, you know. I could have gone with the other guy.
Good for us. This has been great. It's really fun for me. Always a joy to be with you, Ellen.
We go back a little way.
We go back a little, and in a very positive way.
Yeah.
We keep discovering. I mean, a couple quickly. I made a recording of the Haydn and Hummel Concerto. It was the first digital recording made in New York, and Ellen was the producer. And there's a great picture of us when we were both kids. And I prepared a piece, at Juilliard
Yeah.
in 1975.
Something like that.
That Boulez was going to, that actually he
Oh,
did.
yes, the symposium, yeah.
The symposium.
75, yeah.
And until a few weeks ago, Ellen didn't even know I had done that. I had
Yeah,
warned,
yes, you
I had
had.
warned the students what they were going to, Peter Menon asked me to do.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I said, look out, because he'll make trouble for you
Yeah.
if you don't learn your parts.
Well, he was fantastic
Oh.
to work with. I really just
Loved him.
loved working with him. And the way he talked sometimes. I mean, one of my favorites was he's on a forum in Paul Hall, and it's all students sitting there, and here he is in his expensive suit, you know, and he's saying, "Burn the past." Well, here he is. He's making a pretty darn good
Very rich
living
guy.
with the New York Philharmonic, where they're not
BBC
exactly
Symphony.
burning the past, you know.
Right.
And here we are sitting there in jeans and t-shirts, and we're trying to make our way today, you know. And he had ways of being very divisive and, you know, being the voice for certain kinds of styles and certain kinds
Now,
of...
I remember he once said, if you write octaves for the cellos and basses, it's a terrible, you can't write that, you're a horrible composer.
Well, the thing, if somebody tells me I can't do something, it makes me want to do it.
Of course.
This is another
You write a
story,
concerto for cello and double bass. There was a question about a band work.
Yes, I have, and as a matter of fact, I mentioned my bassoon concerto.
Yeah.
And the guy who was the chief arranger for the Navy band, and those military bands in Washington are fantastic.
They are.
He did an arrangement
For bassoon and band.
bassoon and band.
Isn't that great?
Big ensemble thing.
But have you written?
And it's wonderful.
Have you written an original?
I did a little bit of tweaking it, but it was very.
Have you written original works for band?
Yeah, I've written several things. Yeah.
Sorry, I should know.
And
So that's from Nicole. So Nicole, she already has. Theodore Presser.
yeah, well.
Great to be with you. Thanks, Ellen. Thank you so much. What a joy for me to be our first guest who's not a relative.
Oh, I thought we were related, Gerard. We go back so far. I mean, I thought we were related.
Thanks, and we'll see you next time.